Lawyers, we are starting one more live stream. And today is Wednesday, April the 9th, 12:30 Rio de Janeiro time. And as usual, a reminder, if you are here live with us, you have a priority to choose topics of your interest to be discussed. If we don't have topics being suggested, then we're gonna go and discuss topics from our backlog. But again, you have a priority over others. So take advantage of it and let me know what topics you would like to have discussed here live. All right, let's take a look at our chat window, see if there is any participation so far. No participation so far. Well, we have Bill. Bill is in the house. Oi, Luciano. Great day today. Absolutely, Bill. Very happy to be alive and very happy to have you with us. Thank you for chiming in, Bill. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at the news and let's see if there is anything interesting going on. We're going to take a look at UOL. UOL is one of the largest news portals in Brazil. And as you can see here, the main headline is talking about tariffs. All right, so Canada and Europe approving tariffs over U.S. products in 25%. And then pretty much everything else under this headline is addressing the ongoing tariff disputes involving the United States. Okay, there should be other stuff here, addressing, either President Trump tariffs. As usual, there is a very close and interesting, emulation, if you will, of U.S. Politics in Brazil, right? You have President Trump in the United States. We had President Bolsonaro in Brazil, and there is this ongoing dispute between left and right, and it's so interesting when you compare the two countries and you see so many similarities. All right. We have more people here joining us as we speak. We have Ronnie. Ronnie, good to see you over here. Did they start the visa for U.S. citizens? Matthew, beautiful day today. Thank you for chiming in, Matthew. Raven Taylor, boa tarde, Luciano. Boa tarde, Raven. So good to see you guys over here. So, Ronnie, that's a good question. And the date is April the 10th, right? So, we have up to tomorrow to find out if they are gonna implement the visa requirement or not. All right, so there you go. That was a good question. I haven't been tracking actually, Ronnie, like to see if they have issued anything so far. But last year, on April the 9th of 2024, in the evening, that's when they postponed for the third time the requirement for visas to U.S., Canadian, and Australian citizens. So, if they are planning to do something similar to last year, we wouldn't know until later today, okay? But by tomorrow, for sure, we're going to know if the visa requirement went in effect or not. All right, Raven has a comment over here. I purchased a condo in Rio in 2021 and have been trying to go through the process of getting the condo registered. Can you provide info on the process and typical time frame, right? So, Ravens, the way that real estate transactions work in Brazil goes a little bit like this, right? Like, when we are handling a real estate transaction here, first we do a bunch of checks on both the property and the seller. If they pass like this initial checks, then we're gonna go to the contract stage. We're gonna structure the contract in a way that we know our client is gonna be able first to perform within the given timeline, and we also gonna make sure that upon closing, our client is also gonna get title to the property, right? So all of those things they are usually taken care at the beginning of the purchase acquisition, right? Not afterwards as an afterthought. So this said, after the contract, you have a bunch of certificates of clearance that must be provided by the seller. Of course, the buyer will need to perform by paying a first payment, right? Like a smaller payment. Some people call it a down payment. Other people call earnest money. Other people call it sinal, as we say in Portuguese. And then, towards the closing of the transaction, that's when the buyer needs to have in Brazil the bulk of money available, right, to pay off the transaction. And at that point, everything about the property and the sellers should be resolved, right? So there are certificates of clearance. There may be issues regarding the seller and so on. So at the closing, if everything goes well, money is going to exchange hands, and then the sellers, they are going to sign the escritura, the so-called escritura. The escritura, that's how we call it in Portuguese. That could be compared to a deed of sale. So if you're buying a property in the United States, usually the closing is going to take place in a title company like Chicago Title. And it's a private office. You're gonna go there. You may meet in person, like the realtor, the sellers, and so on. And the closing is gonna take place physically. In Brazil, we don't have title companies. You would actually attend the closing in a cartório, right? And for Rio de Janeiro, usually foreign citizens are gonna need to either attend in person the closing, or they are gonna have someone attending the closing on their behalf. Through a power of attorney, right? Nowadays, not back in 2021, I believe, but nowadays there is also the e-notariado, which is an electronic certificate that would allow you to participate in the closing even remotely, right? From the United States or Europe, you could participate through a video conference using the e-notariado electronic certificate. After the closing takes place, the paperwork is sent from this registry to a second registry, which is the Registro de Imóveis, which is a second registry specializing in keeping real estate records, right? In the United States, this is traditionally done by the county. So every county in the United States will usually have a department of real estate recordings. So this is done by the county. In Brazil, we have a second type of registry that's going to handle the real estate recordings. And the second registry, they are going to review the paperwork from the first registry. And as long as the paperwork is good, they are going to usually issue a new title in 30 days from the closing, right? So the timeline is usually 30 days. And in this new title, you're going to see your name on it. You're going to be in the chain of ownership. In Brazil, you always have like the prior transactions showing up on the title, right? And in Portuguese, we call it Registro do Imóvel, which is basically this document that is going to show, that's going to give a notice to people that you are the owner of record. But usually, so answering in a very summarized manner, you're going to have this done like in 30 days after the closing. Now, very, very often, Raven, people are gonna, sign a contract with, just a realtor. Realtors, they don't know all the paperwork involved, and there may be like some gap in terms of documents. And when that happens, the second registry in the loop, they are not going to issue the title, right? And then people, after your money is with the seller, a realtor has been paid, naturally, you're not going to be a priority anymore for either the seller and the realtor. So this situation tends to linger like in time, right? Like until something happens or nothing happens, and that's what could be happening in your case, Raven. All right, Rio de Janeiro, it's a very interesting market. That's where we have most of our real estate transactions, and that's also where we see the largest number of issues when it comes to real estate transactions, right? Rio is a very interesting state, right? Like, I mean, in my opinion, there is no city that is more beautiful than Rio de Janeiro, right? There is an unbeatable mix. Like, you have a huge city, and at the same time, nature is like present in every single aspect of this huge city. So it's a very unique place. On the other hand, traditionally, we see problems, particularly with the government. Out of the 10 last governors for the state of Rio de Janeiro, 5, I'm not sure if 5 or 6, went to jail for corruption charge. And naturally, corruption is not restricted to the governors, right? Like, I think it would be very naive of people to just blame the governors, to just blame the politicians, right? There is a massive volume of corruption in Rio de Janeiro, and that kind of spills out into everything that you do in Rio de Janeiro, if you will. All right, Raven, I hope this context does help with your understanding. Jason Harris, good day, Luciano. Long time to speak. I hope all is well. Absolutely, Jason, and so good to see you over here. Jason is mentioning, I recently watched one of your videos regarding usufruto, real estate purchase. Would that be possible if my father purchased a home for me to apply for the golden visa? That's a very interesting question, Jason. We never had a usufruto real estate transaction before. Just clarifying for the other participants here in our live stream, usufruto is a term that we have in Portuguese, which is similar to the life tenancy. Life tenancy in the United States, that's how people call the usufruto, life tenancy, and it works kind of like this. You're gonna buy a property, but you're gonna separate the legal ownership from the possession. So instead of buying a property and having both the ownership, the legal ownership, and the possession, you separate those things. And one person is going to keep the legal ownership rights, and a second person is going to have the possession, right? So that's life tenancy. Life tenancy is going to mean that someone is going to have a tenancy, is going to have the right to use the land for their entire lives. And after they pass away, the possession is going to come back to the owner of the legal rights over the property. So that's exactly how it works in Brazil, usufruto. Usually usufruto, more traditionally in Brazil, is going to be done after the person buys the property. So you have a property in Jason example over here. His father would buy the property legally, and then would probably assign the possession to Jason, right? So in this case, Jason, I think I would not recommend the usufruto / life tenancy approach, because if you think about the process, at the end of the day, like the residency is going to be given to you by the Brazilian immigration. And the Brazilian immigration, they are looking for a clean title on the name of the applicant. So whenever we apply for residency based on real estate investment, everything needs to match the name of the applicant. And here, if you have this kind of dissociation, right, like one has the legal ownership and another has the possession, I think is just too confusing. And most probably than not, the Brazilian immigration would probably deny this application just because it's not like the entire thing, right? You would either have the legal ownership or the legal possession, and like the Brazilian immigration would probably say, well, this is not the entire thing, and therefore we're not going to grant you the residency, right? That's my guess, Jason, but that's an interesting question for sure. All right. Jason is actually also complementing or supplementing his question. The property is in his name, but having ownership to qualify for the residency investment visa. Yeah, so if the property is in his name, like meaning he retains the legal ownership, for sure, the Brazilian immigration will not give you the residency. All right, Jason. So that's I think a safe answer to give you. All right. Didi, has been a while. Good to see you. Didi is saying good afternoon, Luciano. I hope you're well. I'm well. Good to see you again, Didi. Always a pleasure to see you. Providence, good to see you back, Providence. Anyone who's cautious about working with Oliveira lawyers, don't be. They are super fast, very professional, and the easiest to work with. My documents get filed this week, maybe today, and I'm happy. Glad to hear, Providence. So glad to hear. Thank you for your kind words. Yes, we try to do our best. It's a teamwork, right? Like as you probably know, like I mean, I don't file or I don't handle the procedures myself, but I do work with our team like all day long, right? Usually, assisting with more complex types of situations, sometimes meeting with clients. And the good thing is, I can tell you, that across the board here at the firm, we want to get things done, right? That's our goal. That's something that it's very like it's very important to us. Like, I mean, I think that's how we see and how we understand ourselves as people who are helping other people accomplish their goals, Providence. So really glad that you see these words over here. Thank you for sharing, Providence. Didi is sharing, I found out that in the 1980s, with Brazilian legislation, a child born abroad to Brazilian mother could travel with Brazilian passport without being a Brazilian citizen. True. Didi, that's something I cannot answer right off the bat, but it doesn't sound right to me, right? Like, I mean, traditionally under Brazilian law, if you are born abroad, let's try to think this through, right? And I'm just like thinking, like without enough time to kind of go through the details, but a child that was born abroad to a Brazilian citizen, right? Like they have this kind of a passive or potential citizenship because they were born to a Brazilian parent, right? That's the first step. Now, if they traveled with a passport, that means they were recorded, their birth certificates was recorded at a Brazilian consulate, and based on Brazilian law, even today, if there was, the recording of the birth certificate at the consulate and this child has a Brazilian parent, this child should be considered a Brazilian national, right? Now, remember, after the recording of the birth certificate at the consulate, there is still a need for a second recording in Brazil. So once you have this recording in Brazil, the Brazilian birth certificate, which is going to mirror the U.S. birth certificate, because let's assume you were born in the United States, The Brazilian birth certificate, of course, is going to say that you were born in the United States, but it's also going to say that you were recorded at the consulate, and they will not mention anything else, right? They don't need to mention that you are a Brazilian, right? Actually, when we have issues with, the facts supporting that you are a Brazilian national, they are going to annotate on the Brazilian birth certificate. I'm going to give you an example, okay? Let's say that instead of recording your birth certificate at the consulate, your parents would record it directly in Brazil through an apostille. So they get an apostille record at the Brazilian registry without going through the consulate. So in this case, the registry in Brazil would say, listen, this person was born to a Brazilian parent, this person was born abroad, and in order for them to be considered a Brazilian citizen, they will need to show an option, to show a choice for the Brazilian citizenship after they are 18 years of age, right? So in this case, it's not a clean birth certificate. There would be an annotation. But that's how I see things happening in your case. And ICDD has a follow-up. My birth certificate was not found to be recorded in Brazil, but I had a Brazilian passport and they confiscated in 2016. So I would assume from that, Didi, that your birth certificate was never recorded in Brazil. And the only thing you need to do is to take your original U.S. birth certificate plus the recording from the consulate. And if you don't have this recording from the consulate, as long as you remember where the recording took place, you can go to the consulate and ask them to retrieve this document. As long as you have the original U.S. birth certificate and the transcription from the consulate, you would record those two things in Brazil. Does it make sense, Didi? I hope that helps. Right, let's see what else we have. Wilbert, welcome back, Wilbert. Oi, Senhor Oliveira. I have asked a similar question before, and I want to be clear. I went to Brazil from the U.S. last year, from June the 1st to July the 30th. I plan to go back to Brazil in June again. If I can only stay for 3 months a year, how long can I stay this time? Do I have only 1 month left, or I can still stay 3 months if I go back in June? Wilbert, first thing, right? I can share the dynamics of how Brazil immigration counts the days, but I can never tell you for sure. Listen, I guarantee you can come to Brazil, right? I don't want to get in trouble. There is a lot of animosity in Brazilian immigration right now because of the deportations with the, with the news, right? Not with the deportations, because deportations have been the same. They have been forever. But now, news are highlighting the deportations of Brazilians to Brazil from the United States. So, the immigration, they watch the news, they watch the news at the TV, and they think, Trump is like hunting Brazilians down. And they get spooked, they get worked out. So whenever they have a chance, unfortunately, nowadays, they are, throwing the book at U.S. citizens, right? So that's my first heads up. So don't count on whatever I'm telling you to decide on your plans. Or if you need, schedule a consultation, then we can go in details and probably give you a more certain answer. But there are two main ways of counting days, right? Or there are actually two caps. One cap is going to be per year. So a U.S. citizen can stay in Brazil for up to 180 days per year. That's the first cap. The second cap is going to be up to 90 days per entry. And when you hear the up to, it means like the Brazilian immigration can give you up to that number of days or maybe not. So this is discretionary, just like in pretty much any other immigration system. So based on the facts that you're sharing over here, Wilbert, the outcome would be that you have a full 90 days to stay in Brazil. All right, but again, I'm just like sharing, some dynamics of the days being counted. When you enter Brazil, they actually stamp your passport and they tell you how many days you're going to have. They could give you up to 90 days. And if I had it to guess, Wilbert, again, no commitment here, but I would guess you would get the full 90 days. All right, Wilbert. Jason Harris, thank you for answering my question. My pleasure, Jason. Good to see you over here. All right. Jason is also sharing. My concern is regarding my current status in my relationship. Me and my other half are legally separated, and I have heard that this legal separation of goods would be similar to separação de fato, which would avoid future problems and protect my investment. Jason, you saw another participant sharing that they've been waiting for 2 years, right? Like to get a title for the property. If you are in this like in between, or in this kind of limbo mode in terms of your marriage, I would recommend you to wait, okay? Because in Brazil, nobody is going to care about whether or not you're separated. They're just going to care about your marriage status. So if you're married and there is no divorce, like a court divorce issued, potentially the property would be, the property title would be issued showing both names on it, right? And you don't want to need to rely on nuances. Well, but I was separated. That's going to protect my assets. You don't want to be in that position, okay? I think you want to have a clear and final divorce before you're going to go out there and buy properties, all right? And remember, we usually make money by having people buying things, not by telling them not to buy. But we don't want anyone getting in trouble. We want people getting what they're going to pay for, and therefore, I don't want, recommend anything that could be damaging to your acquisition. Okay, so if you are in this in between, status type of moment, I would strongly recommend you to wait until everything is finalized so you can buy this property in a clean manner. Didi, yes, thank you. Lucian, you have been very helpful in all. I appreciate you and always look forward to your program. Thank you, Didi. I also appreciate your support and your participation is really welcome over here. Just want you to keep showing up for our live streams, all right? Wilbert says, muito obrigado. Jason Harris, great advice, Luciano. Thank you. Absolutely, Jason. And by the way, just because we're talking about property, Jason is considering purchasing real estate. Just some good news over here. Maybe you're following, maybe not. So U.S. dollar is back to the 6 reais level, right? It was kind of falling in terms of exchange a little bit. So this is like 6. Let me see. That's intraday, right? Let me show you for the last 3 months. Okay, so for the last 3 months, dollar went up to 6.1 reais, and then here it went down to 5.7. Here was the main floor, like 5.6, and now it's back to 6. Okay, so it's a roller coaster, right? It's a roller coaster, but no matter what, if you're interested in buying real estate, I think it's such a good timing. Of course, I don't want to antagonize Jason because I know he cannot buy right now. But I'm just sharing, for the audience at large. If you take a look at the 1 year graphic, right? So 1 year ago, a dollar would buy 5 reais, right? So if you take a look over here, you can see that it has been just like, increase with a few exceptions. And nowadays, like you're getting one additional real on top of whatever you would get 1 year ago. So it's, I'm not sure if like 20%, 20%, power boost, but it does make a lot of difference when buying properties. All right. So just letting you guys know, dollar remains as strong as always. All right. And that's the sharing. Let's see what else we have. All right. So another nuance, I don't see anyone here talking about marriage, but as we don't have like any comments here pending reading, and yes, we actually have with Jason. Jason has a follow up. Hi, Luciano. I noticed in the past you have not spoke about investment with business. Would it be possible to invest in small business with the focus on selling online? The goods will be in Brazil. Jason, so yes, I mean, there is this route as well. And this route is actually, in theory, right? I say in theory because we're going to get there to the downsides, but in theory, it's cheaper than the real estate route, right? Like, I mean, with 600,000 reais, pretty much 100,000 US dollars as the currency exchange rate we just saw, you could invest in a Brazilian company and potentially apply for the residency. Okay. The downside is that you need to create employment, right? So you need a business plan. You need to create an employment. Usually you're going to invest with a Brazilian party because you cannot be the legal representative for this entity from the get-go. Okay, so you will need to have some type of Brazilian party to partner with at least at the beginning, or to find a service provider who would be willing to perform as the legal representative at least at the beginning of this journey, right? So the entanglements, they are going to start right there, right? So it's not a clean business that you're going to be opening. You're going to need to rely on a third party. After that, you're also going to need to deal with employment and taxation matters, right? And in my opinion, the Brazilian framework for business, we don't work with the immigration route through investment in a business, just because we are always thinking about the future, right? We're always thinking, listen, it may sound like a good thing, but then after our client is into this like for a few years, most probably than not, chances are they are gonna get hurt, and they are gonna say, "Well, why didn't you tell me upfront about all of those problems that I'm facing right now?" So, in order to avoid that, we don't actually support the business investment route, Jason. But there is this route out there, and we are aware. Sometimes even our clients, right? Like, I mean, some of our clients, they are going to go through their route, but they understand we don't do it. And we have been cautious about this route for a while, Jason, just because, again, just an example, right? Like labor law in Brazil, you're going to hire employees, and it has been traditional in Brazil, like for employees, after you fire them, after the employment relationship is over, for them to be motivated to take a second bite at the apple and sue you. And they would sue you for unpaid wages, even if you paid everything required under the law, right? Like, I mean, unfortunately, there is a whole industry in Brazil of labor lawsuits, right? And just to give another example, like particularly in big cities like São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, when you take the subway, when you leave the subway, you could see some people holding signs, lawyer or labor labor lawyers, right? Like, I mean, have a free consultation. And like sometimes the employee is gonna go there, and the lawyer is gonna review the entire employment history. And whenever there is even a small chance of again taking a second bite at the apple, this labor lawyer may entice this former employee to sue you, basically by saying, listen, if you get the money, I take my share. If you don't get any money, no loss to you, right? So that's something kind of really, a bummer, and that's why we don't like to proceed with that route, if you will, Jason. Sean, good afternoon, Luciano. Good to see you over here, Sean. You mentioned that when immigration stamps the passport, they give you a certain amount of days, usually 90. I've been to Brazil. I would assume I've been 7 times, and they never said anything about how long I can stay. Right. So they usually if they don't stamp on your passport, Sean, they would tell you if you ask. Okay. So Brazil immigration, like, I mean, all the personnel that you face when you arrive, like the border control, they are all outsourced. They are never like actual employees of the immigration, right? So they don't speak English. They don't want to communicate. They don't want to do anything else other than punching the numbers over there. And but if you ask, and if they are able to communicate in Portuguese, they usually let you know how many days you're getting. Okay, and that's a tip. Like, next time you come, Sean, try to ask them, or maybe even train those questions in Portuguese. How many days I'm getting? And in the vast majority of times, you're gonna get the 90 days. All right, Sean. GMX Mentor. Oi, senhor. Eu estou em relação com uma mulher brasileira. Ela contratou um advogado e eles estão registrando o nosso casamento. Posso obter visto de reunião de família. É possível que eles possam registrar o casamento sem minha apresentação no Brasil. All right, so just translating here for the audience, like GMX has a relationship with a Brazilian woman, and she has hired an attorney to record their marriage, right? He's asking, can I obtain visto de reunião de família, or family reunification visa? Is it possible that they get the marriage done without my participation, like in Brazil, right? So first thing, yes, like once you have a marriage recorded in Brazil, GMX, you can then apply for the family reunification. And technically, it's not a visa, it's going to be residency, right? You want to get the residency. So after you have the marriage recorded in Brazil, if you just show up with a marriage certificate from another country, they are not going to let you apply. But once you have either like a Brazilian marriage certificate, which you got from the get-go, which would be the case over here, or if you have a foreign a marriage certificate that was afterwards recorded, legalized, and recorded in Brazil, you can also apply for the family reunification residency, right? Here at the firm, we call it Brazil Marriage-Based Permanent Residency. I think it's a better name. Like family reunification visa, it doesn't mean much, right? But that's how the Brazilian federal police, they call it, and that's the same thing we're talking about, right? So you're probably talking about the good thing, like the permanent residency through marriage, all right? So yes, after you have a marriage record in Brazil, there is a bunch of other requirements, right? Like if you are a U.S. citizen, you're also going to need an FBI background check with an apostille from Washington, D.C. So there are many other things, but the entire process, the entire residency is going to be based on the marriage. Okay, so there you go. That's the question to your first answer. The second one is if they can record the marriage in Brazil without your participation. Not impossible, right? But marriage in Brazil with foreign citizens is usually very cumbersome, and you need you need to iron out a bunch of things with a registry, and usually you're going to provide a power of attorney so someone can represent you in this process, right? So I would say not guaranteed, not impossible, right? So not guaranteed, not impossible. If they are going to be able to make it, I cannot tell you. I cannot give you an answer, GMX. But usually, the whole process is a pain in the neck, right? To a point in which GMX, many people they are gonna opt to marry in Utah. Utah now has just like in Nevada, you have those flash marriages, right? Like you go to a capella with like an Elvis impersonator as your ministry of ceremony, and then they're gonna get married. They're gonna get a marriage done in like 30 minutes. Utah is developing a different type of service in which they handle marriages remotely through a video conference, right? So we have other clients here at the firm who came to us after marrying remotely in Utah, right? Meaning the one of the spouses was in the United States, not necessarily in Utah, and the Brazilian was physically in Brazil. Very often, GMX, I don't know if it is your case or not, but very often the Brazilian partner, the Brazilian spouse cannot travel to the United States, right? Nowadays, the vast majority of Brazilians, whenever they apply for a visa, they get denied. Okay, so and because of that, many people will resort to marriage in the United States through a video conference with the Brazilian locally in Brazil, just because they try to marry in Brazil, and after a few months of red tape, documents, and headaches, they say enough is enough. Let me go elsewhere. All right. Okay, GMX, I hope that was helpful. Yokora, hola, Luciano, joining late. So good to see you over here, Yokora. Thank you for showing up. Anyhow, GMX, the attorney was able to get my power of attorney. Wow, right? They're charging a lot of money. The attorney charged me 30,000 reais, roughly like 5,000 US dollars, right? 20,000 before and 10,000 after I get the visa, right? So I'm not sure if that's just for the visa, right? So that's very interesting, right? Like, I mean, we charge here 1,250 US dollars to assist with the residency, right? Again, it's not technically a visa; it's a residency. For most clients who come to us, GMX, all of that is not gonna exceed probably, I don't know, like 2,500 or 3,000 US dollars. All right, so just letting you know. So they're charging, like an amount that is substantially higher than what we charge. But I would tell you, as long as they deliver what you need, it's worth. All right, I mean, we actually charge. Our fees, they are actually cheaper than the fees charged elsewhere, okay? Like we have, very competitive fees. I don't see anything wrong with what they are charging, all right? Again, as long as you get what you're paying for, you're good. In Natal, right? All right, Natal is like Natal is in the northeast of Brazil. Natal is the capital of Rio Grande do Norte. Is a tiny city when you compare to either Rio or São Paulo, right? But again, nothing wrong with the amount, with the location. Like I usually like to make sure whenever you're paying such amount of money, GMX, that you're paying installments, right? Like, I mean, if you're paying 20,000 up front and 10,000 later, like the 20,000 up front, I would rather, break this down into smaller pieces. But again, as long as you get what you're paying for, you should be good. Yokora, question. Once I purchase property under the real estate investment visa, I would be required to file Brazilian tax return from the point forward. your quota. Uh, there are two stages in your journey after you buy property and you apply for the real estate investment route. The first 4 years, right? Like first you get 4 years of residency. These 4 years, they are temporary. So in our understanding, you're not a tax resident. Okay. After the 4 years, when you renew your stay, you can renew as a permanent residency. And when you get to the permanent residency, then you become a tax resident, right? So for the first 4 years, actually, you don't need to file your tax showing your income from abroad. But after the 4 years, if you choose to change to permanent residency, that's when you must file taxes in Brazil as a tax resident, okay? Now, like for the first 4 years, if you're gonna file taxes or not, some people, they buy the property and they do not file, but in our understanding, you should file taxes. You're not gonna show your income from abroad because you're not required to do so, at least during the first 4 years, as long as you don't exceed 183 days in the country, okay? So you are during the first 4 years, you're not exceeding 183 days in the country. You still need to file the tax return, but it's basically because you bought the property, just to say, I have a property in Brazil. That's it, all right? So that's our understanding, Yokora. I hope that was helpful. Roll it out. Uf here. Hey, Uf, good to see you over here. Welcome, Uf. I understand that for an investment to qualify, it doesn't need to be finished, but how does that impact timing for the residency, and what are the requirements if there's still a project or under construction? That's such an interesting question, Uf. Let's get to the board. Let's take a look into that together, right? So, Resolução Normativa 36. All right. That's the regulation addressing the residency truth real estate investment. I'm gonna machine translate by clicking here on Chrome, translate to English, right? And here, you're gonna see there are two tracks, right? One track is gonna be acquisition of constructed real estate or real estate that is ready, or acquisition of real estate under construction. Now, before we go any further, I can tell you that the second track, real estate under construction, is usually gonna be restricted to large developers, all right? Particularly if you're trying to buy in the northeast of Brazil, in other areas, there is a good chance this is not gonna work because you're gonna need to show additional documents. If you go under track A, you're good because you close on the property, you have the title, you show that you sent the money. There are other requirements, but it's more straightforward. When you pick track B, you're gonna see right now that there are many other documents you're gonna need to provide. So let's take a look. Track B. Whenever you pick in track B, you're gonna need to have the purchase agreement registered. So this is gonna need to go to a further registration in a cartório. Some sellers, they don't like it, but if they are a large developer, they're gonna be fine with it. There is, the confirmation that you sent the entire amount. So even though you're buying a pre-construction property, you still need to pay the entire amount up front. You can't just pay, like a down payment and say, and by the way, give me the visa, right? So they want you to send the entire qualifying amount up front. That's letter B. Letter C, construction permit. So the developer should have secured the construction permit, which in my opinion is super easy, right? Now, letter D, that's the one that is gonna cause a problem for most people pursuing that route. The memorial of incorporation recorded, okay? The memorial of incorporation recorded. So this memorial of incorporation, it's something that larger developers are gonna have. But sometimes, particularly in the northeast of the country, when you have smaller developments, they don't have this document, right? They may tell you, well, we have a draft, we're going to do it. And it's always something that they are going to deliver, but they don't, okay? So this is what you need when you're following the pre-construction route. Now, regarding the timeline, your question, your follow-up question will probably be something like this. All right, so let's assume I get all the documents and I send the money up front. Do I need to wait until the end of the construction to get the visa or not? And then I can tell you, you don't need to wait. All right, you don't need to wait. You can actually get it as soon as you have the four documents you saw over there, plus other documents like the background check. There are other documents, right? But once you have those four documents on the property, in theory you could apply, and in a few months you would have the residency granted, if you will, of. All right? Let me know if that makes sense. GMX, muito obrigado, querido senhor. Thank you for participating, GMX. So good to see you over here, and I hope you come back for more. All right? Yokora, what if rent out the investment property as an Airbnb under a temporary residency? What are the tax implications? Yokora, in this case, you're gonna pay taxes on the income coming from the property, all right? And of course, you're gonna need to pay taxes to Brazil, but your taxes, they are gonna be for the rental only. Again, the taxes should not apply to your income from your country of residency, okay, if you will. Now, as usual, these are, like highlights, very easy in a live stream to analyze tax situations. But from a very high level perspective, Yokora, again, as long as you don't become a permanent resident in Brazil, or you don't cross the 183 days, the only taxes you need to pay are the taxes for income you're getting out of Brazil, if you will. All right, Yokora. Roll it out. Thank you. Perfect. You're very welcome. Again, so good to see you over here, Oaf. All right. Let me see if we have anything else here to discuss. All right. From our backlog. All right. This one is asking again about the April the 10th deadline. So for those of you who don't know, President Lula's administration, they've been trying to enforce visas for U.S. citizens, Canadians, and Australians. He has been trying since the beginning of his administration. So it has been for a few years now, and he hasn't been able to do so. Last year, on April the 9th of 2024, so we're talking about exactly 1 year ago, in the evening of April the 9th, he said, you know what, I'm going to postpone for a year the requirement. So 1 year is going to be tomorrow, right? So by tomorrow, we're going to know if there is going to be a requirement for visas, whenever U.S. citizens are coming to Brazil or not. But, that's going to be or this is the fourth time, I'm talking the fourth time the Lula administration is trying to enforce that. And very interesting to note, the federal government, just like in the United States, they have a discretion in terms of requiring or not. So it's not like, the Brazilian Congress can do much about it, because this is something that is discretionary to the federal administration. Now, what happened last year, naturally the federal administration, they depend on the Congress for a bunch of other things. And the Congress said, listen, if you start requiring that visa, we're going to hurt you on these other things, right? And then the President Lula said, or thought, right? Listen, I want to hurt U.S. citizens very badly, but not that bad. So let's give it a pass. So this thing was postponed to tomorrow, and we're gonna know what's gonna happen by tomorrow. So in our next live stream, we're probably going to be addressing what happened, and if you ask me right now what is my bet, listen, I don't know, right? I mean, if you think it is true, if you try for 3 times, you are unable to accomplish, and you try for a 4th time, I guess, like, I mean, sooner, I guess eventually you're going to be able to make this work. But at the same time, if you see this pattern of, trying and not accomplishing, you can also say, well, they should not be able to do that this time as well, right? So really a toss. I don't know what to expect, but maybe because of the tariffs and everything else, that's the chance that Lula was looking for to make the visa, fly this time, right? So maybe instead of a toss, I would say, it's not a toss anymore. It's most probably a yes. Tomorrow we're gonna see visa requirements for U.S. citizens, Canadians, and Australians. Yokota, so kind of you. Yokota, this time, he's going overboard. Yokota is not buying me lunch. Yokota is buying me dinner. You are amazing. I will tell you, Yokota, you are amazing. I really appreciate. That's so kind of you, Yokota. You don't need to do that, but it's certainly appreciated. Okay, Yokota. I'm gonna send you later on a picture of me and my wife, having some dinner on Yokota. Thank you so much, Yokota. Really, really appreciate it. All right, Sean, just a reminder to like the live stream. Appreciate it as well, Sean. We have 12 likes so far. There may be more likes on its way. And I want to say I really appreciate your participation. Yokota, as usual, very generous and with a big heart. And we're gonna have our next live stream is gonna be for sure. I mean, we're gonna have a live stream on Wednesday. I'm trying to get a live stream this Sunday as well. Not sure yet. If you come to our Oliveira Lawyers YouTube page, you're gonna see that there is a live stream already scheduled for Wednesday, and I'm trying to get one for Sunday as well. Not sure yet. If I have the possibility, I'm certainly send you guys a message through our channel. So if you are subscribed, you're gonna get our message. If not, I'm gonna see you on next Wednesday. I want to say thank you, everyone, for participating. Thank you, Yokota, for the generous gesture, and see you in our next live stream. And all of you have a blessed rest of your day.